Director for Parks Recreation and Golf in Commerce City, Colorado. And I will allow my colleagues to introduce themselves as well.
Sure, I'm Stacy West. I'm a principal planner at Denver Parks and Recreation, and along with Kathy, one of the co-chairs for the mobile workshops as part of the National Planning Conference in 2025.
Hi, everybody. I'm Abby. I'm the executive director for APA Colorado. So I've probably met most of you, if not exchanged phone calls or emails. Very grateful you're all here today. Stacy and Kathy are here to lead the discussion. If there's anything I can help you with, please let me know.
And so today we'll provide a conference overview, including an overview of the Mobile Workshops program, how to develop a strong proposal, and also some helpful tips. We should have plenty of time at the end for questions and answers. If you think of a question, please feel free to put it in the chat or hold on to it until the end of the presentation, and then we'll have Q&A at the end. And then we'll also welcome anybody who maybe has presented a mobile workshop in the past. If you have advice that you'd like to share, we'll have time at the end for that as well. We are recording today's session so that we can share it with anybody who maybe couldn't attend this afternoon but is interested in getting some of this information as well. Next slide, please. And so a little overview of the National Planning Conference. It will be held in 2025 from March 29th through April 1st in downtown Denver at the Colorado Convention Center. And if you've never been to the National Planning Conference, it is the premier event for planning professionals. There are sessions, there are mobile workshops, which is what we'll be focusing on today. There are also a lot of networking opportunities. They estimate about 6,000 people will attend. This is planners from all over the United States. And then there's also an online option as well. And then with the planning conferences, they really like to get a sense of local flavor, what is unique about Denver and Colorado. And so the conference sessions and the mobile workshops are places to really highlight that and really showcase to folks who are coming to town for this conference what is special about this area. And so the window to submit a proposal is currently open. It opened on July 31st and closes on August 21st. Next slide, please. And so the mobile workshops occurred during the course of the conference. You can see here the varieties of dates and rough time windows that you can submit a mobile workshop. So as you're thinking about a proposal that you might have, if it needs to occur on a specific day or in the morning or the afternoon specifically, that's something to be thinking about. There are also some opportunities for full day workshops as well, and we'll talk about those a little bit more in depth, but you can see here throughout the entire conference from Saturday all the way through the closing day of Tuesday, April 1st, there are opportunities to have mobile conferences available to the participants. We did want to note that on Monday, I think it's Monday, Monday, March 31st is Cesar Chavez Day in Denver. So it is a Denver city holiday, and there might be places that are closed in observance of that holiday. So depending on the mobile workshop you're thinking about, and if you need certain guest speakers or need admission to a certain place, that might be something to just double check on if you're looking at that Monday and if that impacts your mobile workshop at all. The conference also overlaps with some school spring breaks, so we did want to point that out as well. Next slide, please. And this here, we wanted to give a sense of the type of mobile workshop duration and travel mode. There are a lot of options out there, so feel free to be creative with what you'd like to do. On the left side of the screen, this is a breakdown of historically how mobile workshops have broken down in terms of timing. This isn't a hard guideline, but this is in the past what has typically been submitted. So a small segment of mobile workshops are under 3 hours. That's only about 5% of mobile workshops historically. And when we think about the time, we're talking about leaving from the convention center to returning from the convention center. So that includes the travel time as well as the learning components that occur on the mobile workshop. So door to door time is what's shown on the left side. The bulk of our mobile workshops historically have been kind of in these next two bullet points, either like 3 to 3.5 hours or 4 to 4.5 hours is where most mobile workshops historically have fallen. And then a handful, about 15%, are 5 to 5.5 hours. And about 6%, or excuse me, about 10% have been about 6 hours plus, or nearly a full day mobile workshop. So there's a lot of room to think about, where you need to go on your mobile workshop, how much time you'll need, and prepare that for your submittal. And then travel mode. Again, this is just a historical breakdown of past travel modes. This doesn't necessarily need to be a hard and fast rule, and you can be creative with transportation. But in the past, about 15% have used public transportation, 15% walking. About half are motor coach, and then about 15% are some other mode like bikes, joggings, boats, kayaks. So there's opportunities to be creative with mode of travel. Something also to think about with your mobile workshop is trying to avoid rush hour, avoiding known construction zones, if that's something that you're thinking about. Like for instance, if you know that if you'd like to propose a mobile workshop down in Colorado Springs, think about rush hour, think about trying to avoid that so that you can maximize the time spent at your destination and learning and minimize time spent in traffic. And then mobile workshop roles. So there's a handful of roles, and this describes each of them. First is the lead workshop coordinator. This person must be an APA member, and then the main role of this person is to be the main contact for APA. This will be the person that actually submits the mobile workshop into the website portal. And then if your mobile workshop's accepted, this person, as we get closer into February, you'll need to submit a final schedule, turn-by-turn directions, and maps. So this lead workshop coordinator will need to be the main point person for that. This person also would get a 50% conference discount, which is a very nice bonus to all the work that goes into being a lead coordinator. This person doesn't necessarily need to be the main subject matter expert or the main speaker, but they do have that main role serving as the coordinator. Then we also have additional mobile workshop coordinators. These folks help support that lead coordinator in planning and delivering the mobile workshop. And then there are mobile workshop guides, and these are folks that might be a speaker or a guide during the mobile workshop session. This can be en route to the venue or at the venue itself. And I will turn it over to Stacy.
Yeah, Abby, feel advanced. Thanks, Kathy. Just wanted to provide you all, because I know it's a lot of information that you need to have together now. So sharing a little bit more about what you need to know now for your application versus what you'll complete later or what will be done for you by APA. So now you certainly need to have your timeline, thinking about where you'll go, approximately how long it will take to get to places and how long you'll stay if you're going to multiple sites. And that's important. APA uses that information in the application to delineate what can become a certification maintenance credit for people who are AICP. So thinking about that travel versus instructional time, if you do want to use travel time as instructional time, like if you're going down to Colorado Springs or into the mountains or something like that, and you anticipate having a speaker on the motor coach with you, you can list that time as well and what that person will be doing. You want to make sure you have a good sales pitch. That's really important for people to sign up for this. And then your transportation types, you can do more than one. So if, for example, you're thinking like maybe you want to take people to Longmont and you want to take a motor coach up there and then do a bike tour, just select that you want both of those modes of transportation. So you're not limited to just one. You'll need to know your general itinerary and the sites that you want to go on. But the description itself is actually pretty limited. So you don't need to have written out everything that you'll do on the whole tour. If there's anything that is like a special circumstance, if you wanted to do, for example, a hard hat tour and people needed to sign a waiver, you'd need to just note that as part of this. And then for the most part, typically there's not really much of a cost for these that you come up with. APA does a total workshop cost, and that covers snacks and logistics, transportation, things like that. But if there's anything that's special, if you are including part of a museum or someplace that has an entrance fee, then you would want to include what that price per person is. And then really important, if you're thinking of a longer mobile workshop, and that you'll need lunch over that time period, roughly noon, then you need to select that you would do that, and APA will add a sort of standard cost of $20 inclusive of tax to the budget for that workshop, but you'll need to actually make the arrangements. And I have confirmed that as people register for things, they can select, that they have a dietary restriction, and you'll be able to get that information ahead of time. I did do a little bit of a search, just a few places around the Front Range, and the $20 budget with tax certainly covers a wide variety of options for box lunches. So that shouldn't be too difficult for folks. So that's what you need to provide now, just kind of knowing things and the highlights. Later on, if your proposal is accepted, about a month before the conference, you'll work on a final itinerary and turn-by-turn directions. So that'll give you a chance to understand if there are any transportation impacts, roads that need to be avoided, or anything like that. Getting ready to deliver your workshop. APA will actually make the transportation arrangements. So if you select, for example, that you want to do a motor coach and take that to a place where you'll be on micro mobile scooters or something like that, then APA will actually arrange to have those things there for you. And they'll work out what those costs are to assign to the overall budget. Same with meeting. You don't have to identify a meeting place. APA will have an area that is designated for mobile workshops, and they'll be organizing people and letting them go and kind of spacing those out so that people don't get lost and miss the wrong bus or anything like that. Same with if anyone needs a particular accommodation for transportation, they can request that at the time that they're registering for the tour, and APA will work with them on what that is. They may contact you, but generally they'll take care of it. And same with coming up with that overall cost. There's no workshops that are entirely free. There is at least a minimal cost for the administration, snacks, things like that. But there's usually a range of costs depending on what type of transportation you need. And then you'll make those box lunch arrangements. Next slide, Abby. Okay, making a strong submission. I promise you, I've been in conversation with a number of colleagues at this point. There are so many stories that should and need to be told. So I think, among planners in Colorado, there's no shortage of types of things that we should tell people. I'm reminded that the last time the APA conference was in Denver, it was 2003. So as you can imagine, anyone who was there then will be quite surprised at how things have changed now. So just thinking about the stories that we have to tell, I'm sure that you can find a category here to fit it in that is a requirement of submitting an application is to choose one of these categories that most closely aligns with what you're submitting. If you have any questions about that, feel free to let us know. But that's kind of like the main point is just showing how you're in alignment with the overall conference themes. But I think they're generous and maybe vague enough to highlight a number of things in there. Next slide, please. The second thing that second half of this, just make clear your learning objectives. Again, that's another category where you're really limited on word count for that. I think it's only 30 words per learning objective. So you don't have to go into like a very lengthy explanation of what people will hope to get out of this, but you do need to try to tie your learning objectives to the activities that you're doing. So if you're taking people to a TOD site, for example, your learning objective might be something like, understand how the development pattern in this town was influenced by the inclusion of an RTD station or something like that. And then same with your CM credit opportunities, just making sure that it's pretty clear that those are tied to the learning objectives. That's actually part of the application. When you list out the time for your trip, which will likely be much longer than the total time for your CM credit opportunities, or it should be. As you're listing those out, you just need to identify which learning opportunity that type of speaker or opportunity is linked to. Again, telling a story, these get sold to people as they're looking over the conference materials and registering things. And because they're, paying for this outside of their typical conference registration, we want to make sure that we're giving them a little bit of razzle dazzle. But the good news is people love this stuff. We've been told that last year at the Minneapolis conference, for NPC2025, that these sold out about 2 months before the conference started. So people are really interested in getting outside of the conference center. If you have an idea for one location or project, you might get a wider variety of an audience if you can loop in some other stories or projects nearby. And then importantly, when you're registering for this and you're like putting in the types of people who will be your coordinators or guides, you do not need to list all of your potential guest speakers now. You do need to list those main people. So the lead workshop coordinator, anyone who's assisting with that, or anyone who's sort of a main guide. And that's really looking at, the people who will leave from the convention center with you. They'll probably be a main support or speaker as part of it. But the good news is if you're pulling in someone who's a contractor or community leader, if they're not interested in attending the rest of the conference, that's fine. They can just attend this portion, the mobile workshops, and they don't need to be registered for the entire conference. They don't have to pay to attend the whole thing, just to be part of that. There's also just an important part, though. If you are going to list people, and it is a limited capacity to list folks in your proposal, I think you get 3 or 4 billets total, and you may have more guides that are actually out at your sites. Your lead workshop coordinator must be an APA member. Everyone else doesn't have to be, but they do need to have a login to the APA website. Because what will happen is if you're the lead coordinator, you'll go in and enter those people. They will get an email then prompting them to complete their author profile before the proposal can be fully submitted. So it doesn't take long to register for that, but it's just an extra step that I don't think anyone wants to do at 11:55 on August 21st. So next slide, please. A couple other hints. I promise you, it sounds like I'm going blue in the face, but it's true. There are so many things that you can tell about here, and I have just been so impressed with what I've heard through the grapevine so far. I want to go on every single one of them. I think ones that we do should also just become regular APA Colorado activities. There's so many great stories. because there are so many, APA would like there to be 50 to 60 mobile workshops total. So we need a big pool to pull from for that. If you're willing to offer yours more than once, there is a checkbox on the submission form to note that if something's really popular or you know that it's a limited number of people who can join on it, select that you're willing to offer it more than once. Bike workshops were super popular in Minnesota, even though it was cold up there in April. So there's no reason why we can't also show them how great it is to hopefully be out in the Colorado sun when the workshop comes to us. Again, you don't have to price out your transportation mode, but do make sure that you're thinking about, as you're planning your route and timing, that everything leaves and returns to and from the convention center. So there's likely to be some traffic in downtown Denver and surely some road work. If we get any updates about what that might be, we can certainly send that out, but just factor that in as you're looking at timing. Next slide, please. On the lunches thing, again, APA is going to add that $20 to your budget for boxed lunches. You'll need to handle the ordering and delivery. So that's if you want to take it with you, you can have those things delivered to the convention center. It might be really hard to find you there. So you may wish to pick a site that you're going to, or for someone to pick those up ahead of time and bring them. If you're also going to a place that has things like a food hall, you can certainly decide that you want to do lunch at a food hall. All you need to do is state in the description that that's going to be part of the tour and that people will have to pay for their lunch on their own so that they know that that won't be covered, but it's part of this. So again, price out any costs. Because these are outside of the conference funding and the conference registration, there's no extra budget to kind of cover these things. So estimate conservatively if you think that there will be costs. And creating a timeline, you should also estimate a little conservatively on how long it might take people to take a little bit of a rest break. So be thinking about where there may be restrooms available on your tour, and about 5 minutes each for loading and unloading if you're taking a coach or bikes or things like that. Next slide. Yep. Okay, so some key dates just for people to know that the proposal submission window closes on August 21st. That's next Wednesday. You may be contacted by me or Kathy or someone else from APA Colorado or National APA after that if they have some suggestions. For example, if two people propose very similar mobile workshops, we may contact you to see if you're willing to do it together or to change something about it to make them distinct. If we get something and it doesn't seem like there are any CM credit availabilities there, we may contact you to adjust the description a little bit so that those could be assigned. But you'll be notified prior to the registration for the conference opening in January. And then about a month before the conference, if you're the lead coordinator, you'll just be asked to submit those final directions and itinerary so that the transportation folks have that information ahead of time. And that's it. I think I hit everything that was pretty key. Oh, I did want to just add that on the bus, they do reserve about 2 people for you and then one other lead. If you need more than that, you just need to indicate that in your proposal for the attendance capacity. But they are pretty standard coach buses. Those can be anywhere from about 40 to 50 people. And when you're filling out the submission form, there's also information in there about what they estimate. So, trying to keep people together on a bike or scooter tour, for example, they recommend no more than 20 because it's a little hard to keep everyone together with things like that. So with that, we'll open it up to questions that people have, or as Kathy mentioned, if you have advice from putting these together for a Colorado conference or from other, opportunities that you've had, I think that this is a great time to share with folks. Oh, good question. Will the conference attendees have RTD passes?
This is something that we are looking into. So we have a couple of people on the board, as well as chairs within our local destination host group, seeing if we can either get passes or even get discounted passes. We also have a separate committee working on a city guide. And so it's something that we have talked with them about making sure, at the very least, we include how to utilize public transportation in that city guide. Go ahead, Susan.
Sorry, took me a minute to unmute. I just wanted to say I have approached our CEO at RTD about passes, and I do need to go through the person at RTD who's responsible for them. So no decisions have been made at this point in time, but that's in the works. I'll just be frank and upfront. I think the real possibility is a discount for passes, perhaps more than complete free passes, but I really don't know that for sure at this point in time, but that's in the works because it would certainly be something nice to do. And I think something that hopefully we can work out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, good question. From Michael, how to appropriately note or budget for tour guide costs. So that's a good question. If you know that there's a standard cost, for example, like if it's that this tour is always offered and this person charges $50 for it or whatever it is, you can put that in your budget notes. And then if there is an honorarium because it's someone who would typically, receive something like that for this type of service. That is, you can put that in. There's no guidance for that though, so it's a little tough to say exactly, what is a normal fee. But if that's something that you're aware of or you want to work out with someone, you can just put that in the budget and it will get factored into the cost. Kathy, I can read some and you can answer if you want.
Sure. Yeah, and I'd actually seen, I think there's a few questions in the chat, and then we also received some in advance that they're different questions, but I think have a similar answer. A lot of folks are asking about transportation options, things like that. So we had received a question in advance about, getting Lime bikes or Uber bikes for people, and then a similar question about, trying to, just how do we arrange that stuff? And so, as we noted in the presentation, APA will arrange, whether it's bikes, a coach bus, whatever it might be. You just need to note that in your proposal. And then if your proposal is selected, APA will take care of all the arrangements of ordering a coach bus, getting bikes, getting scooters, whatever it might be that you need for your program.
Yeah, and they've already been given the name of some of those local contacts for the providers. So they should be able to do that. They may reach out and ask you if there's something special or if you might want to change a time so that they're available. But the NACTO conference was held in Denver last year, I believe, and they had a ton of mobile workshops and needed these things. And so we just turned all that information over. So hopefully they're still available.
And then also, both questions we received in advance, and then I see in the chat here, a couple people are asking about going to Colorado Springs. And I think, yes, that can be feasible for your mobile workshop. Plan in the travel time that you'll need to get down there. Likely you'll probably need a coach bus as your mode of transportation, and be thoughtful about the time it takes to get from the Denver Convention Center to the Springs, do your workshop, and then get back to the convention center. All of that needs to be factored into your proposal, and then think about traffic and if there's any known construction on the route, and ideally try to avoid that. That way you're maximizing the educational value of your mobile workshop and not spending a lot of time sitting in traffic.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a great question about I-70 to and from the mountains, our favorite guessing game in the state, maybe about travel time. I would probably lean toward planning more of one of those full day excursions just because you will have some unknown amount and it being over a weekend. That, you know, that I think the ski train, that's the last weekend. We know that a lot of the resorts will probably still be open. So hopefully it's a little past the peak of people going up there, but that may be something where, you know, you want to plan to depart later in the morning or to offer that full day excursion. And there's also a note, like a free fill-in open-ended box under where you select the potential times that you're available to offer the tour, where you can list sort of restrictions like that. So you might say, you know, this really needs to happen at X time, or we need to leave after a certain time to avoid traffic. And then, yeah, I would have a backup plan. I mean, it might be that your backup plan is something like you can take, you know, 6 instead of 70, and that we know that a coach bus can do that. So I think that's pretty important. I'll take the one too about walking tours. You could just note too in the travel that like we've conveyed that to the national team that people attending the conference could be up for truly anything weather-wise at the end of March, beginning of April. But you could mention that people may want to have things like, you know, sturdy boots or snowshoes or things like that. Not snowshoes, but snow boots. If they want snowshoes, they can come talk to Denver Parks and Rec. But you know, I would just say to note if you are thinking that people might be on like a trail or something that may not have been shoveled.
Brody had asked of the 50 needed tours, how many have already been selected? And the answer is none. We don't have any tours pre-selected. So the submission window is open now through August 21st. We are hoping to get 50 to 60 mobile workshops to offer to participants. So all of those slots are open, and we're excited to see the turnout on this call, and we're hoping to get a lot of proposals that we can then review and select some great ones to provide to the participants next year.
Someone had asked in the chat about the orientation tour that is provided at every NPC. We have a separate committee working on that. If anybody is interested in helping with the orientation tour, the city guide, please just let me know, and we're happy to get you involved with those groups.
How many proposals? That's a good question. We don't have a ton of data, but I know that last year in Minneapolis, I think they hope to have like 50 to 60 workshops. And Abby, you might remember better. I think they got like 60 to 70 proposals. So I would say most get in. I think because thoughtful people take the time to put them together. So, you know, I think there's like very good odds that people will have their proposal accepted, especially if it's different than some other ones. If not, we probably will also contact you to see if we can have them together or slightly different from each other so that they can be included. But with 6,000 people attending and some of the workshops really only being limited to maybe 20 people each, there is a big demand for it. So, you know, who knows how many we'll get now, but I think the goal is to try to accept as many as possible.
That's what's been shared with me. You hit it spot on.
And we did
go ahead.
I say we did receive in advance. Someone had mentioned that they just wanted to submit their name because they were interested in volunteering, which we're excited to hear that. Unfortunately, on our end, we weren't actually able to see the name. So if that person happens to be on this call, please feel free to put your name in the chat or reach out to us and let us know who you are. And we also received a question in advance of someone interested in doing a drone-based documentary in the conference center. And so we will pass that along to some of our colleagues who would be better able to answer that since we're focused on the mobile workshops, but thank you for that question, and we'll pass that along to others who can look into that.
Yeah, and I was going to say I've had some colleagues here at the City and County of Denver who have wondered if they should do something as a mobile workshop or a traditional session proposal. And my answer has been, why not both? I think you'll get different audiences. You may also be able to have a different focus. If you're submitting one of the more like traditional conference proposals, I actually wouldn't think of them necessarily as being traditional because APA is looking for a variety of things. Some are more facilitated discussions, some are those lightning talks. So there's a range there, but there's not a reason why you couldn't, kind of focus on some of the same themes or topics or locations in different ways, especially since some people may not want to leave the conference center and just kind of plow through as many sessions as they can, and other people will really want to get out and about. So I would encourage that if you're on the fence to think about, telling stories in different ways. We'd also love if anyone wants to share some of their experiences with conferences or what's worked well. If you've done mobile workshops with either local, state, or national conferences, please feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I did this at the 2006 National Planning Conference in San Antonio, and it was a walking tour. And I would just say it actually was more work than maybe I would have thought, because once we were out there, it was the herding of the cats, and you had people walking fast, and you had stragglers and people taking photos and wandering off. And we had two of us, and we had my counterpart was sort of at the front and I was bringing up the rear, but I almost feel like we would have been better off with a third person who could have maybe focused on the education, and the other two of us could have just been the cat herding, because it was a lot of work. We also got some rain and hot, humid weather. It was San Antonio in April of 2006. And we did ended up shortening our tour and found some indoor things instead. So back to being flexible, being nimble, thinking of a backup plan without, going long distances out of your way is something just to think about, would be my suggestion.
Yeah, great advice. The cat herding is real.
Yeah.
So if you have colleagues that could help, or a partner on a project or something like that, the person doing the submitting doesn't need to be the subject matter expert. You may want to think about if there's someone who's just kind of good with general crowd control or answering questions, and then leaving some of the speaking roles to other folks. And I think that's also why they recommend limiting the number of people on the walking and the biking tours in particular. I'm thinking of how narrow some of the trails are. Okay, by show of reaction, because you can help Kathy and I know how much in the next week we're going to have to badger people to put in applications. Who is thinking of submitting one or more applications for a mobile workshop? Oh, I love this. Okay, this is good. Kathy and I are going to sleep at night.
I'm excited to see all these proposals.
Yep.
Kathy, Stacy, yeah, I'm thinking about trying to do one for bikes to go to the Broadway Bikeway. It was my legacy project that's just completed, and it's not too far. And thank you so much for helping provide just that gap where I'm lacking confidence in arranging the bike stuff. And that's why I joined the session. So I really do, because that's like a whole I'm good at logistics, but I'm like, hey, that's the other side of my job. That's the crunchy side versus the
Yeah.
sweet side where I lead presentations. So thanks for providing that.
Yeah, absolutely. We were very relieved to find that out that APA manages that as well, because I know they contact and make the arrangements and serve as that kind of single point of logistics, which is really helpful. So I look forward to it. I can't probably go on your tour, Dan, because I want to go on literally all of them, but I think that would be a great one too.
Thank you.
And I think too, it's also nice if you have multiple modes of transportation that if you're taking a coach bus and then getting on bikes and then getting back on a coach bus, you just need to indicate that on your proposal, but APA will take care of all of those transportation logistics of arranging that. Any other questions or advice that anyone wants to share?
Hi, I have a question about potentially a walking tour. I'm with the city of Golden, and one logistical issue that we might face is somewhere like large enough for everybody to eat, because we don't have like a lot of large gathering areas, and then it makes me nervous about the weather. We can sit outside, but maybe not. I don't know. Obviously, I'll try and come up with some backup plans. But as far as eating a box lunch, is that something that we could like have them do on a bus or something, or it would be better to have, I mean, obviously I'd love to have a place for them to eat it without, balancing on their lap, but is that something we could have them like do while they're traveling?
Oh yeah, I think so. And that's, let's say the weather's really nice and you knew of a park or benches or something like that instead. I think you could make that decision to let people be outside and enjoy things. But given how iffy it is, I think that's a great backup plan, and also totally fine to suggest that people have a little bit of a break and do that on the bus.
Totally. Yeah, we get a little more snow and Golden than the rest of the Front Range. So
Yeah,
thinking about that. Thanks.
sure. Well, if there are no more questions or advice or anything from folks, I think we can probably wrap this up, but please feel free to reach out to us. I can put my email address in the chat here. If there are any sort of last minute questions that you think of, we've been just communicating those to APA National, and they've been pretty quick about getting answers back to us. So happy to send anything that would be beneficial for you or any colleagues who are working on putting together a proposal. But I've just been advising people just do it. If we want really good proposals, but the amount of information you have to provide now is not insignificant, but it's not everything. You don't need to have out, all of your talking points or even every person who might be a guest speaker at a site. So I would err on the side of putting something in, and we look forward to seeing them and helping to curate what I think is going to be a wealth of great opportunities for people. Oh, question for Abby. Slides and recording. I think we can get those out to people, right?
Yes. So I'm going to put the recording on APA Colorado's YouTube channel. I'll post it on our website as well under that NPC 2025 tab along with the slides.
Thanks, Abby. And thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you for sharing your questions and sharing your advice. And we're excited to see your mobile workshop submittals.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.